Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Sam's Long Balls podcast with me, Dan. Now, today we are going to be looking at England and we're going to be looking at Gareth Southgate as England fell to a 1-0 defeat against Italy the other night. It means that they've been relegated from their group stage or their group in the Nations League thing. I don't really know what any of that means. Seems like more of a glorified friendly to me. But the main thing about that is England have lost yet again in this calendar year or since really the European Championships final against Italy. Our record has been very, very poor. We have one more game, and that is at home on Monday night to Germany. And that's it, because after that, we then have the World Cup coming up, and England look bang out of form. Southgate looks out of his depth to me personally. You might disagree with that in the comments down below. Let me know. But to me, he's thoroughly looking out of his depth. He looks like he's only got one plan, and that is to play three centre backs, two wing backs, and two holding midfielders. And he doesn't really have an answer for anything else. We have an awful lot of options in this squad. Maybe too many options for a manager like Gareth Southgate. I think personally he would rather have a limited number of players to play one style of football. But we've got a big squad. We've got a good squad. We've got players who are far better than what we are seeing right now under Gareth Southgate. And it feels very, very difficult or hard to give criticism to Gareth Southgate, to be perfectly honest, because although personally I don't rate him very highly as a manager, you also struggle to really criticize him. You know, his managerial record since he's been our manager or the England manager has been very, very good. I think his win percentage is up there with some of the best. He got to a semi-final in the World Cup back in 2018. He got to the final last year in the Euros. So it's hard to really criticize this man because during tournament football, he seems to have that know-how. He seems to be able to get through rounds, and his pragmatic football, although boring and maybe something that a lot of football fans or England fans don't want to see anymore. I've seen a lot of YouTube channels do videos that they want to see more expansive, exciting football. For me, I don't really mind. Personally, of course, I would want to see England playing beautiful passing out of the back, pressing from the front, scoring 4 or 5 goals a game. But it's tournament football. If we are pragmatic and win dogged 1-0 games and we win the World Cup, am I going to care? Are you going to care? The answer is probably no. So if Gareth Southgate wants to go into this tournament and be pragmatic, be very defensively sound and secure, doesn't bother me. Play the back five if that's the way that you want to play. My worry about Gareth Southgate is that's all he knows. And he is either reluctant or he cannot simply change it. And you look at the last two tournaments, as brilliant as they have been, and they have been brilliant, you have to give credit to him. You also have to look at some mitigating circumstances. The World Cup, for example, 2018, wasn't the hardest group stage. I think we got quite lucky with the draw in the knockout rounds. And we really avoided some top teams up until we faced Croatia. And even in that game, we went 1-0 up, played defensive football, we sat back, and then we allowed that pressure to build and build and build and build until, you know, the quality that Croatia had just managed to find its way through. It was inevitable, but, you know, you could forgive Southgate for that because he's still young as a manager. He's going to learn. Last year, in the Euros 2020 or 2021, I don't understand why they keep calling it 2020, but it was pretty much a home tournament for England. Let's be perfectly honest. We played 99% of our games really in England. You're not going to get more favourable draws. The group stage, the knockout rounds, they were pretty easy. They were pretty favourable to England. The only top team that we faced was Germany. So we have to give credit to Southgate and the boys for being able to beat Germany in that game 2-0. But equally, it was a Germany side that were coming to the end of their tenure, especially under Joachim Löw. And a big change was needed. So they weren't the Germany of old that we'd seen previously under Joachim Löw. So really, we didn't face too many top teams last year in the Euros, only up until we faced Italy in the final. England couldn't have got a better start, going, 1-0 up inside the first 30 seconds, playing good attacking football. And then all of a sudden, you know, we regress. We go back to that back five. We sit deeper and deeper and deeper and invite pressure onto us. And Italy had that quality, and they were always going to score a goal. When you've got being outrun in midfield, it's tough enough. But when the opposition have got players like Verratti, Barella in the middle of the park, you cannot give them time and space. You cannot just sit deeper and deeper and deeper because they will find those passes. And that's exactly what happened. And then it goes to a penalty shootout. You never know what's going to happen. So I think when we've lost in the semi-final and the final in our last two tournaments, it has come in very, very similar circumstances. Going 1-0 up fairly early. Teams there for the taking if we can get on the front foot, if we can press them. We've got great attacking players, but we sit too deep. our midfield is very, very poor, and then we just wait and wait and wait. And anyone who's ever watched a game of football will know that if you do that, eventually the opposition will find a way through. And that's what's happened the last two tournaments. I really hope that Gareth Southgate has learnt, but a part of me feels like we're just going to play with that back five, same as what we've always done. We're going to keep going with the same approach. He did try to play a back four a couple of times in this last year, with that 4-0 defeat to Hungary being the last time he played the back four. I think that enough, unfortunately, is going to show Gareth Southgate that actually the back five is the way to go. I'm not sure about that. Let me know in the comments down below how you would like England to play. I'm fine with England playing a back five in certain games, but I also think we need either a plan B or just a second option, because you don't need to play with 3 centre-backs and 2 holding midfielders game after game. And if we look at our group stage, we've got Iran. With all respect, we should be beating Iran fairly easily. We've got USA. We should be beating the USA. And we also have Wales. It's going to be a tough game. You know, obviously Gareth Bale will step up because he always steps up when he plays for Wales. But again, the quality, you can't really compare the quality that England have to Wales. So in those games, you shouldn't be playing a back five. You shouldn't be playing with 3 centre-backs and 2 holding midfielders. Go with a 4-2-3-1 or go with a 4-3-3. Be more expansive. Get on the front foot. Press. Score goals. When it goes to the knockout rounds, if you're then drawing it up against a France, Brazil, and Argentina, then by all means, go more defensive. Put 3 centre-backs in. Go for 2 holding midfielders. Mix it up a bit. I'm fine with that, but don't just have one plan. And that's what I feel is the criticism with Gareth Southgate. He has plan A, which is defensive, solid defensively, probably nick on the counter-attack in those transitions. But when things aren't working that way out, when we're sitting too deep and the team has a similar quality to us, or perhaps a better quality, we are unable to really get a foothold in the game. And I think the biggest area or the biggest weakness in this England team for me is midfield. So I'm going to go through this England squad just very, very quickly, looking at some of these names. I'm actually going to go with the team that I would like to see starting the World Cup for England. I personally would go with either a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. I'll probably go for a 4-3-3 right now. In terms of goalkeepers, I'm on the England website, but I don't think this is the squad, is it? So Jordan Pickford would usually be number 1. I personally would go with Nick Pope. But I think it will be Jordan Pickford who goes in goal, which is absolutely fine. He's having a fantastic season for Everton this year. If we went with a back 4, I don't think you can play this guy, Harry Maguire. I feel that some of the criticism of Maguire is a little bit harsh. Obviously, the obvious talking point right now is it right to be picking players who A, are out of form, but B, aren't even playing? And these two don't make the Manchester United starting 11. So should they be guarantees to come into this England squad? I think it's very, very harsh. I think it's demotivating for a lot of the other England players right now who are playing week in, week out and playing out of their skin. So if Gareth Southgate really needs to juggle that correctly, because he's either going to have to drop someone who's done really, really well for him, but isn't playing week in, week out, or you go and pick someone who's got less experience but is playing better football right now. It's tough. I don't know what the right answer is. I personally don't feel, though, that as a manager you can get away with just picking the same players or players that aren't playing well at club level or simply aren't playing, because eventually the morale in that dressing room is just not going to work, is it? Let's be perfectly honest. There has been a lot of talk about sacking Gareth Southgate before this World Cup, bringing Thomas Tuchel in. That's nonsense to me. As much as I don't particularly rate Gareth Southgate, you can't sack him. You cannot sack him just before the World Cup. It would be absolute madness. He deserves to be here. He's done really well in the last couple of tournaments. We've qualified with absolute ease. My only problem is that the FA have given him until 2024, and I think that's bad. At club level, that's fine. Give managers a longer contract because it's a longer project. They're coaching them week in, week out. You don't want a coach at international level, in my opinion. You want a manager. And the requirement is someone who's got strong tactical nous. And that's everything that I think Gareth Southgate isn't really. You're not going to be able to coach these players. You're not going to be able to develop these players to make them better as an England manager, because you have them for 10 days at a time. There's not enough time for any coach in world football. So what you need is someone who's going to be ruthless, someone who's got a strong tactical plan, hopefully at least two tactical plans, and is strong tactically and can make changes in games. I don't feel that Gareth Southgate is that. He's very, very reactive. He's not proactive at all as a manager for me. So there's been a lot of rumours of, why don't we go get Graham Potter? Well, A, he's just joined Chelsea, but B, having someone like that wouldn't work at international level. That's just my opinion. You might disagree with that, but someone like a Graham Potter is, you give him a 4 or 5 year deal and you go, right, you're going to work with these players day in, day out, and you're going to develop them. As an international coach or international manager, rather, you don't get that opportunity. You have to be ruthless. You just have to go pick the best bunch possibly available, and then you have to be strong tactically. You don't want a coach. And I don't know what Gareth Southgate is. I don't know what his strengths are. I think he's a very defensive-minded manager, but he's unable to change it. And I think one of the damning things really, about Gareth Southgate is, would any of you take him at your football club, whether it's Premier League, Bundesliga, whatever team you support in whatever country? Would you want him as your manager? I certainly wouldn't want him anywhere near the Liverpool job. So I think that's quite damning for Gareth Southgate. I don't think many of us would want him at club level. He's not really a coach or a manager to me, especially at the highest level. So, yeah, what I would like to see going forward for England, Pope or Pickford. I imagine it will be Pickford, but I personally feel that Nick Pope is our best goalkeeper. I would play either a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. What I would go with, though, is if you have players like Harry Maguire, Conor Cody, Eric Dyer, Eric Dyer in particular deserves to be there. He's been in top form this season, but I don't think you can play them in the back four. If you're going to play over back five, then these guys, they deserve to be there in with a shout. But what I would go with would be Kyle Walker at right back, and I'd probably go with Trippier at left back. A little bit harsh on people like Ben Chilwell. I feel sorry for Ben Chilwell. Always gets called up and never gets played. Seems a bit pointless. But I'd go with Walker and Trippier at fullback, and then I'll go with these two, Tomori and Stones, as my defensive partnership. Both very good on the ball, both excellent centre-backs, both playing a back four week in, week out. In midfield, I would go with Declan Rice as the holding midfielder. Calvin Phillips, he's injured and he's not playing, so there's no point bringing him along at this moment in time. I'd imagine he will probably make the squad for the World Cup if he is fit. I wouldn't play them together. Only if you're going to play with a back five and be very, very defensive, then you need two holding midfielders. For these first couple of games, I don't think you do. So that would be my back four. Declan Rice is the number 6. Jude Bellingham as the number 8 on that right-hand side, can play between the lines, a lot of driving force, energy, box to box. And there's very limited options in here. Right now, on that left-hand side, I'd probably go with James Ward-Prowse. Maybe a little bit negative there, but I think he's someone who can keep the ball in tight areas, something that we don't seem to be able to do at times. He can also play those beautiful crossfield passes. If we went to a 4-2-3-1, you can either chuck a Mason Mount in that number 10, or, the elephant in the room, bring back James Maddison into this England team. Plenty of goals and assists this season or in this calendar year, really playing in, really the worst team in the Premier League right now. So, yeah, if James Maddison was here, I would go with a 4-2-3-1, probably Rice and Bellingham as your double pivot, or Phillips if need be. And then you could put James Maddison there and you can rotate in and out with a Mason Mount. You could probably even put a Phil Foden in that number 10. But if this was a squad that we went with, I would go with James Ward-Prowse on the left-hand side of a midfield 3. Up top, obviously, really, you're going to go with a Harry Kane. Talking about Harry Kane, I do think he needs to step up a little bit, which I know sounds harsh, 74 caps and 50 goals. But watching him in the last couple of games for England, especially against Italy the other night, we can criticise Gareth Southgate tactically all we want, and understandably so. But there were times where we managed to counter Italy brilliantly. We got in between the lines, but we worked those transitions really, really well. There were moments where we were 2v2 with the Italian defence, or 3v3. He could have laid it off to a Sterling, to a Grealish, to a Phil Foden, and he didn't. He went for the shot every single time in tight areas. I think he has a history of doing things like this. And look, I don't want to criticise Harry Kane. He's a brilliant striker. He is our top goal scorer. He probably will be, if we win the World Cup, I'd imagine he would probably be Golden Boot. He will be our top scorer. But in situations like that, a little bit like the semi-final against Croatia a few years ago, I just wish sometimes when he gets into the penalty area, he can just pick out a pass to someone like a Foden or a Saka, a Sterling, a Grealish, because there are moments where we have those opportunities, but Kane, either selfishly or whatever, he doesn't seem to look for them. But look, he's a top striker. If he sees goal, he's going to go for it. But something I have noticed in a couple of games, especially against Italy, if he just got his head up a little bit more and just laid it across for one of his teammates, then we might have even won that game the other night. On the right hand side, I'd go with Saka. And on the left, I would pick someone who isn't in this squad right now, but it would be a Jadon Sancho. I think he started the season on fire. I still don't think he's at his best. Like, I think there's more to come from Jadon Sancho. I wouldn't say he's the player that we all saw at Borussia Dortmund, but I think Harry Kane needs pace around him. I want to see as much pace. And having players like Foden and Grealish, they are top players. Don't get me wrong, they're fantastic, but and they don't quite have that pace. They're going closer to the ball. What I want to see is England in those transitions where someone like a James Ward-Prowse can come in and hit teams on the counter-attack. Saka and Sancho or a Rashford really stretching the pitch, creating more space for someone like a Harry Kane. You can then bring on someone like a Jack Grealish, a Phil Foden, or like for like Raheem Sterling to come into the fray. But that would be my starting 11. With the squad that's kind of available right now, I personally would be really interested to go to a 4-2-3-1 and chuck in a James Maddison. But obviously, I don't really understand why Gareth Southgate doesn't seem to either rate him or like him personally. Maybe it's because he went to a casino a few years ago. It might be because of that. But yeah, England aren't in great form. Maybe this is what we need in some ways, actually, because we do go into tournaments maybe a little bit, not arrogantly, but we've qualified with ease. There's a big expectation and England sort of falter, whereas actually maybe the opposite this time. We're going in really poor form, losing games, not scoring goals. Maybe that might in some way take some of the pressure off, but knowing the English media, the pressure is going to be on this team a hell of a lot in the next few months. So hopefully Gareth Southgate is able to turn things around. I think we should be able to play that back five. Throughout the tournament, I had no problem with Gareth Southgate trying to be pragmatic and defensively sound. If you look at winners in terms of World Cup and European Championship over the years, more often than not, it is the team that is very strong defensively that goes on and win it. The only team I can think of off the top of my head that plays or has played brilliant attacking football throughout the tournament and won, and deservedly so, is really Spain in 2010. Maybe France in 2018, but certainly Spain. Other than that, I think more often than not, being pragmatic is the way to go. However, England and Southgate need to develop a plan B or just a different way of being able to play, that when that isn't working and teams are starting to pick up the ball and dominating in that midfield area, especially if we play five at the back, we only have two holding midfielders, and eventually they're going to find that right pass or they're going to create something and score a goal against us. So I think a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 just as a backup option would be the way to go. I'd like to see that tomorrow night against Germany. Abandon the back five. Look, it's a meaningless game, really. It's pretty much a friendly, so just go for it. Try and change it up. But yeah, England in a little bit of trouble, but hopefully we can turn it around. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely give us a like. That would be amazing. Comment down below your thoughts on Southgate and this team. What are your thoughts on him? Do you rate him? Do you not? Do you want to see a change before the World Cup? Personally, I think that would be like kind of insane. But if you think that it would be the right decision, then let me know who you would replace him with. Also, let me know your starting 11s for England going forward. A, for the Germany game, and also B, for that first game when we are in Qatar. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, guys, give us a like, subscribe, comment down below, and thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you very, very soon.